Well, the regular season is over. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Central District Hoops Report. I'm your host, Justin Griffiths, and like I said, the regular season is over. Time to focus on INA, and the seedings are set. So what I'm going to do, since I had conflict with my broadcasting schedule, I'm going to break down the last couple of weeks for each of these 9 teams, starting with Olney and working my way up to Vincennes. So let's go ahead and talk about the Olney Central Blue Knights, who enter this tournament 0-16 in the regular season. And like I said, Olney Central finishes 0-16 in the regular season, but they have played a lot better in the last couple of games than their record dictates. They started out February 19th against Wabash Valley, where they lost that one 74-57. Then they battled Shawnee Logan at the Dungeon. They actually led Shawnee Logan for a little bit in that first half before their legs just gave out from underneath them, and Logan was able to take over the game in the second half. But it was really the second half of that game. And then they battled Vincennes, and Vincennes was just riding a hot streak. That game was never really close. 85-63 the final there. The final against Logan on the 22nd was 88-70. Like I said, doesn't seem like a big score, but in the first half, it was really competitive with Logan. Vincennes, it really wasn't competitive in the first half or at any point in the game, unfortunately, for Olney. And then it got interesting because on March 1st, they took on the Kaskaskia Blue Devils in Centralia and lose 82-77. So, with that being said, it is going to be very interesting when they got to travel back to Kaskaskia to take on the same Blue Devils who they just lost to by 5 points in the opening round of the district tournament. Winner of that game travels to INA to take on the Trailblazers. And Olney's opponent, like I said, is the Kaskaskia Blue Devils. They come into that matchup at 4-12 in district play, and they just played Vincennes Tuesday night, where they lost 101-55 on Vincennes' sophomore night. Before that game, they played Wabash Valley on the 22nd of February, where they lost 82-55. Then on Monday, February 24th, they played Lincoln Trail. That game is a reschedule from the February 19th, where they lost to the Statesmen 80-69 before picking up a win on February 26th against Southwestern Illinois 80-71. Then they enter the month of March, like I said, against Olney Central, winning that game 82-77, and then the Vincennes game. So Kaskaskia has a little bit of momentum entering Saturday's matchup against the Blue Knights. Blue Devils versus Blue Knights. It's just going to be an interesting game, especially if that game against Olney on March 1st is anything to go by, because now Olney has had time to rest up. They did not play on Tuesday, so they've had a little bit more time to rest up. While Kaskaskia had to travel to Vincennes. Now they're home against Centralia. They were in this position last year, facing a similar situation with Lincoln Trail. Lincoln Trail last year was 0-16 heading into the tournament before they upset the Blue Devils on that home floor. Can the Blue Knights do it again? It's going to be interesting, to say the least, and I'll give my predictions to the rest of the tournament later on in this video. The 7th seed in the district tournament is the SWIC Blue Storm, coming in at 6-10 on the year. They had a hard last couple of weeks. First on February 22nd, where they traveled to Shawnee to take on the Saints. They lose that game in overtime 80-77. Then they go to Carterville to take on Shawnee Logan and lose that game 84-76. Then they head back home to Belleville to take on the Kaskaskia Blue Devils and lose that game 80-71 before heading over to Mattoon to take on Lakeland and lose to the Lakers 99-79. Finally, Tuesday night, they were at home against Lincoln Trail, and they lose that game 69-68. And so for the Blue Storm, they were as high as the 4 seed at one point a couple weeks ago. That 5-game losing streak bumps them all the way down to this 7 seed, and they'll be taking on the 2 seed John A. Logan starting at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Central Time in Ina. So it's going to be a tough one for SWIC as they take on the 2 seed John A. Logan Volunteers, who I'll get to later on in the video, and my prediction also later on in the video. Then you have the 6th seed coming in at 7-9 on the year, the Shawnee Saints. And Shawnee has had another rough couple weeks heading into district tournament where they lost to Lakeland on February 20th, 95-91 in a shootout at Mattoon. Then they pick up their only win in this 2-week span against SWIC, like I said, on Saturday the 22nd, 80-77 in overtime. Then they hosted Wabash Valley, where the Warriors are starting to look like they're getting into their tournament shape. They beat the Saints 78-44. On March 1st, they had a GRAC game against Rend Lake where they lose to the Warriors 82-78 before closing out the year at home against John A. Logan on Tuesday and losing that game 70-50. Again, Shawnee at some point was as high as the 4 seed. They come in here at the 6th seed. They will play the final game Monday night against Lakeland, the 3 seed. And all I'm going to say in this preview portion is it's going to be a fun show, especially if the game on the 20th is anything to go by. A 4-point loss for the Saints. But again, the Saints have had a couple of rough weeks, including losing their point guard for the year. So it's going to be very interesting going forward to see how far Coach Sparks can take his team in Ina. But their road starts against the Lakers. These next 2 teams actually tied in their records for the district at 8-8, but the tiebreaker makes this team the 5 seed, and that team is the Lincoln Trail Statesmen, again coming in at 8-8 on the season. Once again, a huge step up from their 0-16 last year. They've had an interesting last couple weeks, and they are riding an extremely hot hand coming in here, starting with their game on the 22nd against Rend Lake, where they beat the Warriors 71-58. And then on Monday, they took on Kaskaskia, Monday, February 24th. That is the makeup from Wednesday, February 19th. They took on the Blue Devils, and they beat them 80-69 in that game, before ending the month of February against the Lakers of Lakeland and beating them 79-65. Going into March, they pick up their only loss of this impressive stretch of games, going all the way back to February 8th. They lose to John A. Logan 83-75 before picking up a 69-68 win against SWIC. Their opponent, also 8-8, the Wabash Valley Warriors. So in the regular season, they split the series, and it just came down to the tiebreaker against these 2 teams. And so it's going to be very interesting to see who has the hotter hand going into this matchup. It's hard to play a team 3 times, and that's what makes this tournament so fun, is that you have to face a team 3 times, through a possibility 3 times in a row to get to Hutch. So it's very interesting to see how Lincoln Trail handles this game. They play 4 o'clock Eastern Time against Wabash Valley. And like I said, Wabash Valley also comes into that game against Lincoln Trail at 8-8. They're riding a 2-game losing streak after a 3-game winning streak. February 19th, they beat Olney Central 74-57. Then on Saturday, February 22nd, they beat Kaskaskia 82-55. Shawnee on the 26th of February, beating them 78-44. In March, they have not won yet. They took on Vincennes March 1st, losing that game 70-52, and lost Tuesday night against Lakeland 92-85. So they do secure the 4 seed. It is going to be very interesting to see. Like I said, against Lincoln Trail, it's going to be very interesting to see how these two teams play against each other. They split the regular season series, and they do play the second game of Monday's schedule after the Vincennes winner of the play-in game. So they will have a little bit more time to get to Ina. 4 p.m. Eastern time tip-off for that one. It's going to be very interesting to see who wins between those two teams. The 3 seed in this tournament is the Lakeland Lakers, coming in at 10-6 on the year. They've had a mixed bag the last couple of weeks, starting with the John A. Logan Volunteers game on February 15th. They lose that game 98-81. Then on February 20th, they beat Shawnee 95-91 before taking a step back and losing to Vincennes 92-86 in a thriller in Mattoon. Then on the 26th of February, they lost to Lincoln Trail 79-65 before finishing out on a strong note against SWIC in Wabash Valley, beating SWIC 99-79 and Wabash 92-85. It's going to be very interesting to see how they play against Shawnee because both games against the Saints have been so close in between each other, and it's hard to beat a team 3 times. So it's going to be very interesting to see. Again, that game is played 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, Monday night in Ina, and it's going to be a very good clash between the two teams. Then you have the 2 seed John A. Logan coming in at 13-3 in the district. They are riding a 7-8 game win streak. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this team performs in Ina. They beat Olney Central on the 22nd of February, 88-70. But again, Olney in that first half, they held with John A. Logan. Then they played SWIC on Monday night, February 24th, and they beat the Blue Storm 84-76. Before getting things back on track against Rend Lake, beating them 103-63 after losing in Ina earlier in the year. Then, coming into March, they took care of business when they needed to. They had the 2 seed locked up a while ago. They took on Lincoln Trail, beating the Statesmen 83-75 and Shawnee 70-50 on Tuesday night. This team, like I said, they are coming in with an amazing win streak. They are the 2 seed for the reason. It is going to be an interesting to see what Coach Smith Peters can put together to possibly get his team to Hutch. They got to win 3 games, and that starts against the Blue Storm of SWIC, 6 p.m. Eastern Time in Ina. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. I'll give my predictions later on in the video after I recap Vincennes. And obviously the number 1 seed in the tournament, they've had that locked up since the 22nd of February against Lakeland. The Vincennes Trailblazers coming into the district tournament at 16-0. They're riding a 20-game win streak, and it is going to be very, very interesting to see what this team can do in Ina. Let's go ahead and recap the last couple of weeks for the Trailblazers and Coach Franklin. They started off with that thriller against Rend Lake, 92-86. Then they took care of business against Olney Central, beating them 85-63. Before, again, hosting or closing out at home against Wabash Valley and Kaskaskia. They had a Good Samaritan night, a community cancer night against Wabash Valley, where they beat the Warriors 70-52 on Saturday, March 1st. And then they closed out, of course, with sophomore night against the Blue Devils, 101-55 victory there. And again, 20-game win streak. They get the first round bye. Essentially, they get to see who they play between Olney and Kaskaskia. It's going to be a difficult battle for the Trailblazers, especially since they haven't lost in the district, and beating a team 3 times is so difficult. It is going to be an interesting way to see how this Trailblazer team takes on that challenge. So, here is the final look once again for the district, the final regular season records. And again, that is also the seeding. So let's go ahead and look at the bracket here. As you see, Olney Central taking on Kaskaskia, 4 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday in the dungeon of Kaskaskia. Winner takes on Vincennes, 2 p.m. Monday, March 10th. Then after the Vincennes game here goes Lincoln Trail versus Wabash Valley, followed by SWIC and Logan. I know that's not right, so ignore the 8 p.m. Eastern time. That is set for Lakeland and Shawnee. I don't know why they flip it to the 2 seed playing the early game in that one, and then the 3-6, but that's how they've always had it done. So with that being said, let me go ahead and give you my predictions to what I think is going to happen for this tournament. Okay, so my predictions for this tournament. Olney Central versus Kaskaskia, opening game. I might want to say the upset happens again and the 9 seed moves on. And that's just because Olney played Kaskaskia so tough, and they've had time to rest their legs since they didn't play on Tuesday. So they went from Saturday to Saturday, getting practice in, getting healthy. And that's what Coach Levina's team really needs at this point. While Kaskaskia, yes, you played Tuesday night against Vincennes. So your legs are maybe a little bit more tired. But this is playoffs, baby. You need to be able to grind it out. I think the stigma on Kaskaskia is the fact that they lost in this game last year against a winless team. Is why I think Olney Central can win that. This is the most toss-up of toss-up games because I can see Olney coming out like gangbusters and win this game. I can see Kaskaskia riding the ship from last year and winning this game. So, with that being said, I do think Olney will survive and advance to take on Vincennes on Monday. So now we have the quarterfinals set in my mind. Olney Central against Vincennes, 2 p.m. Eastern time on Monday, March 10th. Olney, I think this is where their season ends. I think that they get that win in the district tournament, and then they fall to Vincennes in this one. I just see Vincennes being able to handle their business in the opening round game. Now, Vincennes could think this way and prepare for that 4-5 matchup and let Olney sneak up and bite them. I highly doubt it, however, just because this team has not had that mentality of looking forward in a game. We've seen it since December, where they just focus one game at a time and moving on to the next game. And I think they'll continue to do that against Olney or Kaskaskia, whoever wins that game, and move on to the semifinals. Then you have Lincoln Trail against Wabash Valley. Again, these two teams split the regular season, and it came down to a tiebreaker to see who's going to be the 4 seed. Wabash won the tiebreaker, but I think the fact that both these teams have seen each other, have beaten each other up. I think Wabash is playing a little bit better basketball at this point in time, and I think that they do pull out the win. But Lincoln Trail, they could stop the way Wabash likes to run their game, because they've been able to do it to teams like Wabash in the past, and actually done it to Wabash themselves when they played each other in Robinson. So I can see Lincoln Trail winning, but I think Wabash does prevail in this game, just for the fact that, in my opinion, they're playing how Coach McGee wants them to play and how they played towards the end of last year. So it's going to be, I think Wabash is going to pull out the win here. Then you have the 2-7 matchup, Shawnee Logan against SWIC. This game's extremely interesting because both matchups, Shawnee and SWIC, were close. They were close in Belleville. They were close in Carterville. For this reason, you might see an upset in SWIC, because beating a team 3 times is extremely hard. But I don't see it quite yet. I do see Shawnee advancing to the semifinals, but it's going to be another one of those games where I don't think that Shawnee is going to blow a team out in the quarterfinals. I think that they are going to grind it out, and I think this game's going to be within 5 to 7 points, like their 2 matchups have been in the past. And I do think they do pull out the win, but if SWIC does upset Shawnee, I wouldn't be surprised, because both times, like I said, both times these teams played, it's been really, really close. So it could happen. I just don't see it happening this year. Then the final game is Lakeland versus Shawnee. Shawnee, if they had their point guard, I think they win this game. They played Lakeland to the horn both times. I just see Lakeland pulling out the win. However, like SWIC, it wouldn't surprise me if Shawnee pulls out an upset here. They've been able to have success in Ina in the past. Lakeland, not so much. But, again, Lakeland, they're playing really good basketball. I mean, they like to run and gun up and down the floor. So does Shawnee, up and down the floor. It's going to be this game is must-see TV on March 10th, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, to see who moves on and who will take on, in my opinion, Shawnee Logan. With that being said, I do think Lakeland gets over the hump and beats Shawnee. But I think this is a 3-point ball game at the least. So that's going to do it for this week's episode. I am going to make videos as this tournament goes on. So I will make a video and post it on March 11th and March 13th for the quarterfinals and semifinals going forward. And I will even post the winner of the Olney Central Kaskaskia. It will be a quicker video than we have seen in the past, just because I won't have stats to go over. I'll be able to just break down what I see in the game, and I'll do that for the quarterfinals, semifinals, and the championship game. I might have another twist in my arsenal for that one, but I'm getting ahead of myself. This week is playoff basketball. It is survive in advance. The winner gets their ticket punched to Hutch, and it is going to be a very interesting week, starting Saturday between Olney and Kaskaskia and ending Friday in Ina, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central Time. That's going to do it for this episode. I will see you all on Sunday night. Peace.